Hey guys, alright, today we're going to learn about just basically some characteristics about a quadratic function. One, as you see, we're going to look at minimum or max, and two, we're going to look at domain and range, and lastly, y-intercept. The first function that we're going to look at is this one right here. F of x is equal to x squared plus 4x minus 3. Now, although it may look very apparent to some of you guys, it may not to some. So I'm just going to kind of go over the whole definition of min or max. Minimum min is the lowest point of a function. Maximum means the highest point of a function. So let's kind of look at this graph that we have. As you see, this quadratic function right here, or this parabola, is going up infinitely. It's never stopping. So it kind of makes sense to us that this one will not have a maximum point, but it will have a minimum point. It looks like somewhere over here. Just for this graph's sake, I'm not going to go over how to find that point algebraically yet, but looking at this graph, we're going to kind of guesstimate the point right there. And I'm going to assume that point is about -2 and about -7. Okay, but we're not really looking at the x-axis as much because it doesn't really matter what point it really is. It will in real life, but I'm gonna say that my min is at this point, and my y point, the most important thing, is -7, which is the lowest point that this graph will go through. Now let's look at domain and range. Now domain, remember, domain means x, like so in this case how wide that graph goes, and range means your y, which means how tall your graph is going to get. Now let's look at this graph. Do you see how this graph is infinitely going to your left all the way up, forever to your left and forever to your right? So this is going to go to forever to your right and forever to your left. So your domain really is every single number that's on your left and right. So your domain, I can say that is all real numbers. Now your range is a little bit different. Your graph will never go beyond this little point right here. It's never going to go down, never. And it's always going to stop. The lowest point would be at -7, as we have pointed out. But it's always going to go upward on this graph. So your range, I'm going to write it in several different ways, just because your book writes it like this. If my thing will write, your book says, and for some reason this is their favorite way of saying the range, that right there is a set bracket, as we've learned. They're going to say your f of x, or your function of range, is such that your graph has to be, oops, I may need more room right here. Your graph has to be, I'm going to erase this too. Your graph has to be greater than or equal to that -7 right there, because it started at -7 and it went up. Now, a lot of professors would rather write it in this way just because it's easier to write. They're going to have this closed bracket, -7, into positive infinity, and open bracket. The notation of closed bracket and open bracket, I'll go over it in class. It's super easy. I just don't want to take up too much room in this video. Not bad? Okay, now y-intercept. Y-intercept has to be one of the easiest things to find above all things. Now y-intercept, of course, is a point where your graph crosses your y-axis, and I would say it's about here. Now the easiest way to find is if you have your y and all of your x's is 0, then that's the point where your graph will cross your y-axis. Or I can say the number at the very end without any variable beside, that's going to be your y-intercept always, no matter what. So your y-intercept, I'll say, is -3, or if you would like to be proper, you can write it as 0, -3, which is on 0.4. Now, I have one more practice that I would like to go over, so that way it'll kind of go, so it'll kind of sink into you. And that's why I'm gonna kind of go faster on this since we've already learned it. Now, this graph is also a quadratic function, and it's function of -2x² plus 3x plus 9. Most of you guys know this little negative makes this parabola a frowny face, not a happy face. That's already good that you guys remember that. Min or max, this one obviously it won't have minimum because it's going downward forever, but it will have a maximum. It looks like around at 10, so I'm going to say maximum at 10. Okay, and just because I'm not sure what that x is, that's what I'm going to say as of right now. Now, domain and range. Domain, once again, it looks like it's going to go forever to your left and forever to your right, as wide as possible. It's going to be all real numbers. And as you've noticed, on your quadratic functions, your domain will always be all real numbers, unless if I don't give a specific domain ranges, okay? Now your range, this time I'll also write it in 2 different ways. I'm going to say your function is, now I'm going to say it's going to be less than or equal to the 10. Oops, I didn't write the little thing. Your function such that, that little line means such that, is going to be less than or equal to 10. Or I would like to write, it's going to include 10, but this time, instead of going positive infinity, it's going to go downwards, so it's going to be negative infinity. Okay, that little square bracket means it's going to include that. That parentheses means not including, just because you can't include infinity. No way, no how. Now, y-intercept at this point, guesstimating, it looks like 9, but I know it's 9 because the ending digit right here is 9. So your y-intercept is 0, 9. Alright, that's it for this video. We just clarified a few different things. I hope this helped. In the next video, we'll actually learn how to graph this thing.